Hi guys, it's fall, y'all. I don't know about you, but I love fall. Just the thought of the corn and the leaves and the crisp air, a nice little bonfire with some s'mores and scarecrows. I love little scarecrows. I'm not able to really decorate much for Halloween anymore. I mean, I could, but I don't really have a reason. I don't have grandchildren yet, and my little ones are all grown up. So I just kind of stick with decorating my home with fall colors and just things that remind me of fall, and scarecrows always have. And you don't need to do just scarecrows for just Halloween. I mean, they can take you right through November, right through the whole fall season. And they just have the cutest little smiles, and they're warm and inviting. So with that being said, today we are going to tongue-tied. We are going to take this little round jar that I found at the Dollar Tree. It's got a nice sealing lid, lid with a seal. Another jar I found at the Dollar Tree has a wider top and a smaller base. Some raffia that I found from the Dollar Tree, and they come in 3 a pack. And the paint I'll be using is the apple barrel from Walmart. I get it for about 50 cents a jar. It's really inexpensive, and it's just handy for a multitude of things. And then we're just going to gather up maybe some scrap pieces of fabric that you have around the house, maybe some buttons. Who knows, you could use a little zipper. You could use a multitude of things to decorate this little scarecrow's clothing. So, with that being said, I'm going to show you how I took these little items here and added a few extra things that I had at home and made the cutest scarecrow candy jar that you've ever seen. Happy fall, y'all. Let's get to crafting. We start with the base of the jar, and I mixed about 3 different colors of the apple barrel. I mixed a tan, white, and kind of an ochre yellow color together, and I would dip my sponge brush in each one of the colors and pat them on the jar all at the same time. And as I would keep patting the jar, it would blend these colors into a pretty mottled, fall-colored face for my scarecrow. I did the whole jar this way, and it took about 2 coats of doing this to get good coverage, and it looked really good afterwards. I then went on to the other container, and I did the exact same thing to it, covering the whole container except for the bottom, because on the bottom is going to be where I flip it upside down and the head of the scarecrow is going to attach to the body. So I just painted this container all over the sides with the mottled yellow, white, and tan colors in the same splotchy motion that I had the head, and it also took 2 coats. I then took the apple barrel dark blue acrylic paint and started to paint bib overalls on the body of the scarecrow. I started with the straps, but after the finished product, I thought an easier way would be if I would have just painted from the bottom up to about the middle of the jar and then added the straps. Then I wouldn't have had to worry about whether I was placing the straps evenly front and back or not. But I was just going along with it and having a good time. So I painted the straps maybe 1/4 of an inch wide for the front and the back, placed them as evenly as I could so that it would look like they were going up over the scarecrow's shoulders from front to back, and then I painted the rest of the body of the jar blue. The base of mottled tan colors that I had painted the whole jar made a really nice base for this blue acrylic paint. So I only had to use 1 coat of coverage to get the bibs just the way I wanted them. I made the space in the front, where would be the neckline, a little wider,
and the space in the back where it would be the back line a bit wider. And then the space underneath the arms, or where your arms would go through the straps, I made that maybe about 1 inch wide. Once the Scarecrow's bib overalls were dry, I cut out 4 little pieces of gingham. I made sure to match each piece of gingham to each section of the Scarecrow's body, and I laid the piece that I was going to glue onto the Scarecrow, I laid it on my stand right in front of the section where it was going to go, so that it would be easier to keep track of where the pieces fit. I then put some decoupage glue onto the Scarecrow's body, and once I had the piece of material attached where it needed to go, I decoupaged over the top. This gingham material is going to serve to look like the Scarecrow's plaid fall shirt. I had a little bit of this scrap gingham left over from when I had been making bows with it, and I thought it would just be the perfect touch for a little fall shirt for this guy. Remember, just put the decoupage glue onto the container first. Put your material where you need it. If you have a spot like I did there where the material is a bit long and it wants to bunch up, just cut some slats in the top and fold it over like you would a Christmas wrapping. And then decoupage down, and it'll be a perfect fit. It's kind of fun to dress this little Scarecrow and see him come to life, as my mother would always say. Now it's time to make the sleeves for this guy. In the sleeves, I just cut out a couple of small pieces of rectangular shaped material. And I cut out 2 so that I could cut both sleeves at the same time. All of my gingham that had little frays on the ends, I pointed those frays downward so that it would look like it was coming off of the end of the shirt, and it turned out really well that way. But for the sleeves, you just cut out an oval shape around the top and leave the bottom cut straight across for the bottom of the sleeves. You cut the top at an oval so it will look like his shoulders when you place these sleeves on your Scarecrow. When I placed the sleeves on my Scarecrow, I made sure to double check where I wanted them to go first, because I wanted his arms to look as if he were reaching out towards you. I had to cut a little bit more off because they were just a little bit too long for where I wanted them, so it's okay if you have to go back in and adjust. But make sure when you're placing them that you're placing them under the armpits where your arms would come through the straps. And that would be your smaller sections of material. The shoulders will glue right to the same area where those smaller sections of material are, and just angle a bit towards the front, if that makes sense. Just like that. And then decoupage them on the same as you did the rest of the shirt. Once your shirt's all dry, take a little piece of material of your choosing. I just had a fat back from Walmart that I had picked up for like 97 cents, and I've had it for a while, but I love the bright daisy material. So we're going to make a little ruffle around his neck. Cut about 1-inch strips off of the side of that fat back. And even if you're not sure how long they need to be, that's okay, because the way we're going to do this, you can just keep adding more to this ruffle until it goes completely around. Make sure you have plenty of glue sticks. And let's see if I can explain this. You're going to start by putting a dot of hot glue onto the top of the container, and placing your strip just along the edge. Once you know that's stuck, you're going to make a small fold going towards the area where you stuck the first piece of fabric. When you make that fold, it's going to make a type of ruffle. So just put another dab of glue under that little fold you made and tack that down. And this is how we're going to finish this ruffle all the way around. A dab of glue under the material laying on the container, then make your fold, a dab of glue underneath the folded area, and just continue around. When you dig down to your very last piece, like I said, you may run out, and that's okay. Just take another piece and try to match the pattern as best you can and glue it down. Continue gluing and folding until you get all the way around to the other side. Then simply cut off the excess, and where the two pieces overlap, put a tiny bit of hot glue and join them together. And it will look seamless. You'll never know. Looking good, guys, looking good. Now it's time for the raffia. I used this because I wanted it to look as if there were little pieces of straw sticking out from under the Scarecrow's neck. And the easiest way I found to do this after playing with it was to just cut off about 1-inch strips, bundle them in your fingers, lay down a strip of hot glue, and then lay the bundles in the glue. You may have to go back and put a bit of hot glue over the top if you want to hold all of the pieces of raffia there. But it worked out fairly well, and when I was done, this was the effect. If you have a few long strings, all you need to do is simply snip them off and give him a little haircut. Perfect. Now that we're done with the ruffle, we're going to go back to the head. And remember, the head of the jar is also going to be able to be used for a candy jar or a little storage jar. So make sure that you have the opening facing up when you paint the face on. And we're going to start painting a face. I found that if you paint the nose first, especially if you paint it in a triangle shape, It's much easier to get the eyes even when you paint them. So I started with the nose, and I just used an orange color in the acrylic paints. There he is, a little triangle. And to spruce it up some, I took some of the black acrylic and just painted little lines around the nose, which you'll see afterwards, to make it look like stitches. For the eyes, I went in with white first, and I painted a shape where the inside of the eyes were more oval shaped and the outside was kind of like a triangle. I wanted to get the effect of him looking shy and sweet. Now, if you have trouble with eyes or you can't think of a face, there are millions of Google images out there that you can look at of scarecrow faces and pumpkin faces. Just pop one up and get an idea. Trace it if you want to. It's yours, it's unique, it's to you, so however is easiest for you. But I just freehanded these guys. And see how the nose helped keep the eyes aligned? That's why I said it's much easier to draw the nose in the center first. Now, as you're doing this, if you have a hair dryer, you can use that to kind of help set the paint as you go along, so you don't have to wait so long for it to dry. Just make sure that it's on a cool setting and not too hot. And then I went in with a green color. I thought green would be nice for his eyes since it's fall. And I just made a semicircle shape a little more towards the outer edge of the white part of his eye. And I just did that little semicircle strip so that it would look like the iris or the colored part of the eye. And then once that's complete, you can go in with your black to do your pupil. And I used a very fine tipped brush. That way I could get a nice thin line. You could also do this probably with a paint pen if you have trouble handling a brush. A paint pen would give you much better control. And I know that they do sell those black paint pens at Walmart. I'm sure one of those would work fine. But I just used my brush and painted the pupil, and then I went all around the eye and outlined everything. I wanted it to stand out. And I also wanted my little scarecrow to have some character, so I just slashed on a few little eyelashes at the top for effect. And there you have his eye. It's getting there. And you see how I just outlined everything there. And then I do the same with the other eye. It's so fun to see your face really start coming to life. He has expression, and he can only imagine what he's going to look like put all together. This is a really fun project, guys. I think you'll really like it. There we go. He's all set. Now I'll show you how I did the stitching around his nose. I simply took my brush and outlined a black line around the outside of the nose first. And then I just made tiny little fine lines all the way around the nose so it looked like stitches going through the outside edges. See there? Made all the difference. Now we gotta go for a mouth. And I do want him to have a smile, but I kind of want him to have a cheeky little smile. So I made his mouth very squiggly, with hills and valleys, and it gave him a cute little cheesy grin, like he was up to something. Then we just add some eyebrows, which just enhances his cute little cheesy expression. And then his eyes, you want them to look like the light is shining in them. And the best way to do that is like I showed you there. Take the end of your toothbrush, the handle part, dip it down in your white paint, and just gently dot it wherever you want it to look like it has highlights. And now we're going to glue this guy together. I use my combination of E6000 and hot glue. The E6000 I put in the very center and then on various parts around the head. In between the areas where I did not put E6000, I put a generous amount of hot glue. The hot glue will tack down the head so that it holds nice and firmly and I can continue working, but the E6000 will be there, and if you leave it set for 24 hours, you will have a nice permanent bond so that it won't go anywhere. Just be careful because remember, the hot glue only tacks. It does not hold glass to glass permanently. So it's simply put there to keep the jar stable as I work. I found some little buttons in my stash, and I decided that this little scarecrow needed a button. I went for the yellow one. That looked the best. Let's stick it in the center and see what happens. Once I had the button on, I decided it would be the perfect place to put a pocket on the front of his bib overalls. So I drew the shape of a pocket with white acrylic paint around the outside of the button so that it looked like there was a button in the very center of the pocket. And this turned out to be just the accent his bib overalls needed. Just the little touch of stitching around the edges, it really sets everything off and makes him look just perfect. Now we're going to paint on a hand for each side, and I just mixed up a little bit of that yellow and tan and white again to kind of match his face. And I went ahead and painted his hands. I just painted them like you would a pair of mittens with the thumbs to the front side. It was simple enough, and it was just enough to add a final touch. Now to the lid of the jar. This is going to be our Scarecrow's hat. And I had some scrap pieces of an old drop cloth that I saved just in case I would ever need them, and I thought it would be the perfect color for a floppy straw hat. So I simply cut out a square that would cover the whole lid, leaving extra hanging off of the edge. I then placed it around the lid to make sure that it fit the way I wanted it. And I put a dot of hot glue on the top of the knob just to secure the material so that it wouldn't slide around. Once it was dry and secure, I pulled a few strands of the raffia off of the bunch that I had, and I wrapped this around the knob, securing the material tight, and I just simply tied a regular knot on one side. Raffia is a little stiff and it's kind of hard to work with when you're tying. So take your time, even if it's a little fussy. And that's why I didn't make a bow. It's easier to do just a simple knot with the raffia. And I did put a little dab of hot glue to the back of the raffia to kind of hold it in place too, since it's so fussy to tie around the knob. Once your knot is tied, you can cut off the excess and make it however long of a length or short of a length that you want. Now once you have your raffia where you want it and all spread out the way you like, hot glue your material down to the lips or the edges of the jar lid. We want that to kind of stay in place and drape nicely over the edges. So just small dabs of hot glue around it and attaching the material like that will give it a nice flowing effect. Watch your fingers. It's easy to get burned when you're gluing down material. That glue will squish right through it. Once you have the material glued in place, I took my scissors and I rounded off those sharp square corners of the material. I thought that this gave the hat a much more natural look and it flowed a lot better. If you'd like to leave the corners on, you can, but I just really thought that it gave it a much better effect by rounding all of these sharp edges off. Now I'm going to work with some red burlap ribbon, and I believe I got this at Walmart last year around Christmas time. And I just wanted to cut off a couple of little squares to add some patches to the top and side of the Scarecrow's hat. This particular burlap is the kind that frays very easily, so I just pulled a few extra strands of thread from each side to make the frays a little bit longer and a little more jagged. And this worked out really well. And then I was able to just place a dot of hot glue wherever I wanted to put my pretend patches and stick them right on there. Remember, think outside the box. It may be ribbon or something like that, but you don't have to use it as ribbon. You can use it for whatever your creative mind comes up with. And here you see how I pull just a few of the little threads off of the edges to make the edges more frilly and more jagged. And it really gives it a cute patch-like look. Okay, Mr. Scarecrow, on with the hat. Oh my gosh, you guys, how stinking cute is that? One final step, polyacrylic protective finish in clear matte. It is water-based, so it's water cleanup, and it's a matte finish, so I won't lose that nice matte look to Mr. Scarecrow. But this finish is terrific to put over projects like this, especially on glass or tin, because it'll give it a nice coating and really help to prevent any of your paint from chipping off. So I actually put 2 nice coats of this all over Mr. Scarecrow wherever I had painted, and then I let it dry overnight. We've got to keep something this cute protected because I want to use him for many seasons.
Hey y'all, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed making our Scarecrow candy dish today. I love this little guy. He's so cute. As a matter of fact, I named him Ichabod. I don't know, just sounded cute. So little Ichabod, I'm going to fill him up with some of our favorite Halloween goodies so that when I do have little ones come over, they can have fun popping those candies out of Ichabod's head. I really hope you enjoyed this. I'm really having so much fun. fun. I can't tell you how much fun. Helping to inspire you to create and make and do, and to always be uniquely you. Come back and see me again. Thumbs up, guys. Subscribe. Thank you.